thank you all for coming and welcome to the session. My name is Romina and I'm the Director of Chapters at Women in Voice. And yeah, Katie and I just decided to start this little series of sessions. We decided to give it a name called Ambassador Academy. It's probably going to be a lot about social media because that's just one of the core topics that we all deal with. And yeah, so this first session is going to be, yeah, as the name says, an Ask Me Anything. And what we are going to do is, Katie has prepared a little presentation. I'm going to hand over to her in a second. Just going to run through that quickly. We also gathered some questions beforehand. And then it's basically just open to all of you to ask questions. You can use the chat. You can just speak or raise your hand. This is not supposed to be a presentation. So feel free and comfy and yeah, just join the discussion. And I'm extremely thrilled to have so many people here from around the world. So we have Women in Voice Germany here. That's, for example, Julia. We have Women in Voice Spain, Women in Voice ANZ, Women in Voice Italy, India, Silicon Valley, and Netherlands. I think that should be it. So yay, very cool. Thank you so much. That's so awesome to have such a yeah, broad variety of chapters. And yeah, so I think I basically said everything I need to, and I would like to head over to Katie, who's running this session. I'm very excited to hear your experiences.
Thank you so much, Romina. And this is all possible because of Romina. So I know we all love her dearly, but just want to take a moment to thank her again for setting up this format, Ambassador Academy, and inviting me to present first. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. One moment. Okay, can everyone see it okay? Great. So I'm Katie B. Thank you so much for joining us today. Like Romina said, it's so great to see everyone from around the world. And social media is such a big topic. So I'm just going to share a couple of slides to set up our conversation. And then most of the time will be spent to answer your questions. Because we've seen some coming in and there seems to be quite a few. So just quickly about me, I've worked in marketing, branding, and content development for 10 years. And the last 5 years, in addition to creating voice experiences, I've also been working with brands and influencers on digital to promote campaigns and content. So I've been in this space for quite some time now. And the last year, I've really been working with Women in Voice. So for Women in Voice Global, creating that, everything we've done has happened in the last year. So just to give you an idea, like there's still a lot more we want to do, but it takes time to build up social presence and branding and all of that. So we'll get into more detail, but just have faith because it can happen. So quickly, I just want to acknowledge the rest of the Women in Voice Global content team. We have a wonderful, small but mighty team, including a content strategist, Leslie Ann, a content producer, Aisha, and Raven, who is our research and analytics guru. So it does take a lot of, there's a lot of roles and a lot of different hats you can wear in social media. So there's plenty of responsibilities to go around. And it's like bringing all the puzzle pieces together to make the social media content happen. So with that, we'll keep moving through. So I wanted to give a high level overview, just a quick snapshot, because social media is one piece of a larger content puzzle and everything kind of is connected, right? So everything that your Women in Voice chapter is doing relates to social media and promotion in order to make sure members or the community are aware. So as you can see here and what you're probably familiar with Women in Voice, you know, we have our monthly newsletter. Slack is a constant daily kind of place where we all convene as well. The website, of course, and then there's channels that we launch original content on, such as Medium and YouTube. And this is also events hosted by your chapter, anything of that sort. This all funnels into social media though, and this is where we'll be spending our time today, obviously. So the channels that Women in Voice Global is on is LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And we'll keep moving through, but this just kind of shows you there's a lot more we could add here too. And as we continue to grow, we certainly will add to this, but just to give a sense of the lay of the land. So when I was thinking about how to explain the social media process, I find it similar to building an ice cream cone or sundae. Everything, and that seemed like a good global metaphor because who doesn't like ice cream? So it all builds on top of each other. So I want to definitely make sure this comes across. So it's kind of starts with the platforms, right? Like setting up your accounts for your Women in Voice chapter. And it really helps to have a point person for each platform. So for Women in Voice Global, I have access to all of the platforms, but Leslie Ann runs point on LinkedIn. I run point on Instagram. Joan runs point on Twitter. So that kind of helps to have ownership over one platform. And if you have multiple people, just setting that up can be super helpful to make sure nothing slips through the cracks. So then the next scoop on top is the content. So this, I kind of already mentioned, but this is the events, the programming, workshops, any announcements. This is all of the content that you want to promote across the social platforms and have audiences engage with. So today and the most of our conversation will be about the planning and the posting. Planning is the most important piece of the puzzle for social content. This is how you kind of define your strategy and think about the content calendar, what events are coming up that you want to promote for, building up the Women in Voice branding, creating assets and writing copy. So this takes a lot of time. As well as posting. So scheduling and publishing across platforms, QCing each post, and also just driving engagement, which is like the top. This is like engagement is like the sprinkles on top of the sundae. It's like, sharing posts to stories, which I know there might be some questions about, and actually getting that engagement, likes and comments and interacting with the audience. This builds up your social presence as a chapter even more so. And this is ongoing. So there's a lot that goes into this. It's not as easy as one might think. So then going into more specifically just zooming in on the planning section, these are kind of the 3 phases of social media planning, right? So content calendar planning is the first step, and just if you can plan a month ahead, or sometimes it's much shorter timelines than that, 2 weeks is probably ideal. You can kind of see events coming up and know what your content rollout will look like. And this also saves you a lot of time because you're not scrambling every time you want to do a social post to get something live. You're kind of have an idea of what's coming up and can prepare for that. It also allows for better collaboration amongst a team where different contributors can add the caption for Twitter, which is, 180 characters versus the caption for LinkedIn, which can be a book if you want it to be. So all of those nuances with content calendar planning comes in to this piece of the puzzle. And these are the tools that Women in Voice Global uses. So Google Drive, Google Calendar. We're starting to use Asana, which is really great for mapping out tasks, and Google Sheets as well. So it's best to do what works for your team. But these are resources that we've been using for the past year, and it's been effective. So quickly next, the number 2 is creating assets and captions. This is actually like, what is the post? When you know when it will be going live, what is it actually going to be, the visuals? And to relate it to voice, this is probably the most similar to like a conversation design role, because you're actually crafting the visual assets to communicate with your audience and get them to react to the posts. So this takes a lot of time as well. And this is where like a strategist or a writer is great to have contributing. And then number 3 is actually publishing. So it can be time consuming to post individually to each platform. So this is where like a Hootsuite is such a great resource where it can push to all your social accounts simultaneously. And Hootsuite does have a free tier where you create your account, you connect up to 3 social accounts. So I would definitely recommend that if you're looking to publish across multiple. And just quickly to go back to number 2, sorry, I skipped over this. Creating assets, there's tons of different ways to create assets. Women in Voice Global uses Canva, which you should all be invited to. If you're not, definitely let us know your email and we can have you added to that board, which is basically just a space to create graphics. The branding and the logos are already uploaded in there. So it's somewhere where you can create a personal board for your chapter. But it's been a great resource just for easy asset creation. So yeah, this is everything here. And we'll share this deck after. All these links are clickable. The image sizes cheat sheet is a very frequent tool I use because a lot of times the platforms are also evolving different sizes. You know, with stories, a post or an asset size is different from the main feed. So it's just something to keep in mind. And most of the time you can use the same asset in multiple instances, but this is a good reference to check. Okay, I'll quickly run through this. This is a very text-heavy slide, but it's basically just the most important thing and the starting place is like, what is your goal as a Women in Voice chapter? And this is something that the Women in Voice Global team asked early on. And really what it came down to was driving brand awareness and recognition for our global presence and all the work the chapters are doing. So that it's including Women in Voice branding, which we have a checklist we'll share with you. And also a consistent posting schedule. Keeping, you know, 1 post a week at minimum is usually a good place to start, or as events come up, obviously. So another goal is to increase following across platforms. And this is where engagement comes in too, increasing engagement. So like following other related accounts and interacting with others in the space or other chapters. And this is another important piece of increasing engagement is always including a call to action. So whether it's, you know, our next book for Women in Voice Book Club, announcing that and saying, join us and including the link to be able to join, or register for the event. We can't wait to see you there. Just that simple leaves the audience with a takeaway of how they can actually take the next step to get involved. Yeah, so I think that kind of is everything I wanted to just touch on quickly. You can definitely connect with me. I'm on all the social media platforms, but most active on LinkedIn and Twitter. And of course, you can reach out to me on Slack if you ever have other questions that come up, but hopefully we'll get some of those answered today as well.
Thank you so much, Katie. That was a very great overview. And I don't know about all of you, but I was just thinking, yeah, well, that's exactly why companies usually have like a social media manager they hire, right? Because there's just a lot of stuff to consider and a lot of tasks to take on. So it can be a full-time job, right? So, and yeah, all of us do it like voluntarily, usually in groups and stuff. So yeah, it's great to have an overview. And yeah, this was really to maybe just inspire all of you to ask more questions. And there were already some questions that we gathered, and I'm sharing the link to that document in the chat. We can just go through them. I don't think we need to really share it here on screen because it's just kind of a boring document, right? But in that document, we saw that many of the questions that you raised up front were around design, on like creating assets. So, and Katie actually had a slide that goes very well with those questions. Katie, if you would like to cover kind of like what you have on your slide and the questions we had. And we also have Jenny here in the call. I think if she's still here, who can also chime in if she wants, because she's the one who has created the whole corporate design of Women in Voice.
Yeah, definitely. So This is just a quick branding checklist. So I still reference this when I'm doing creating assets or just thinking about posts. We do have a full Women in Voice branding guidelines deck, which kind of dives in deeper to logo usage, the specifics around the tone and the voice of when you're crafting messaging. So definitely check out that as well. And you can also reference Women in Voice global channels, which is a work in progress, like I mentioned. But if you just want a quick look at the portfolio of how we've evolved, like Instagram is a great place to do that and just see we've come a long way. When it's relevant, include the Women in Voice chapter logo. I think you don't necessarily need to include this on every single post, but for events or if you're running a specific campaign, use the logo and kind of keep it prominent and in the same position, just so that people and audiences get familiar with your chapter and the initiative that you're launching. The colors, so the core and the accent color codes are on this side as well, which we can share. So we definitely want that like teal core color to come through prominently. And then the accent color is like this darker purple. But this is flexible, like as you can even see in these slides. I think the colors we use are a good reference. It's kind of all complementary to the core and the accent. But really just making sure things are visible and easy to read and understand. That's most important. Font is Avenir when possible. Canva, for example, doesn't have Avenir as a font. Great example. So we just find the closest thing. But again, just making sure it's clear and legible. And then suggested tags. Tagging is huge on social media, obviously. Anytime you post, if you include @Women in Voice Global's handle or hashtag Women in Voice, will get notified and can repost or reshare or engage with it. So I always like to include that because this is an easy way for you to get more amplification from every single post you do. And then you can also include a number of other hashtags that the voice community uses in general. And these vary a little bit from platform to platform. And the more time you spend and get comfortable, you kind of see what trends with hashtags. So, and it has to be related to what you're posting about, obviously, but that's another great way to get a larger audience to see your posts. Yeah.
Awesome. And I think I was just checking the questions that we had. So and you covered most of the design topics. Maybe just to emphasize even more, because there was one of the questions on the logo on the color combinations for the logo, and you already mentioned that accent color. And yeah, I think what's important to emphasize here is you could also use other colors, right? I'm posting the Women in Voice homepage in the chat because I just added today a banner from Women in Voice Italy for their next event, which is tomorrow. And you can see here, for example, that they are using the pink or like a pink as an accent color. And so basically you are quite free to use any additional colors, or for example, to pick one other color that you would like to have for your chapter, I guess you could say. The only thing is that, of course, kind of the core branding should remain, right? So don't mess with the logo and like don't completely neglect the core color. So whatever goes with it could be a nice addition. Could also be a way for you to stand out from other chapters if you would like that. So that is actually quite flexible. So the whole thing about also the brand guidelines that I just shared in the chat, of course, is to give some like help, especially, right? Because that's usually the questions like what should we do, what should we not do, but it's not that strict. We are not like a company that's on the stock market or anything, right? So there is flexibility. Just make sure Women in Voice is recognizable. I think that would be the main case. And another question we had here, and Katie, please interrupt, chime in and take over. I don't need to take over, just running through the questions here. One explicit, oh, maybe we can also probably stop sharing, right? So that we can see each other. We will share that presentation afterwards. One question was where to put the logo. Would you like to answer, Katie?
Yeah, definitely. So logo placement, recently, actually, Women in Voice Global has been using like top middle placement. And this, like for Ambassador Academy, it was a new format. So we wanted to have that prominent position. Lower left has been in the past, the placement for general. That's usually a good position because it draws the eye down to the lower corner, but doesn't like take over the whole visual. But this varies again. I think there isn't necessarily a standard, and Romina, feel free to jump in. But I think consistency is really important, just so that if it's a Women in Voice hosted event, it's good probably to have that consistent placement, so people know that it's a Women in Voice hosted event. I know I mentioned like book club is something that we post regularly about on Women in Voice Global, but when we share a book, it's not written by Women in Voice. So we wouldn't include the logo on that image because that would be confusing. So that's a good example of just like when not to use the logo on a visual, and make sure that distinction is clear. Whereas if it's a Women in Voice hosted book club event and that's the promotion, we would include the logo. Does that answer the question? Okay. I know it's not a straight answer. There's so many nuances, so feel free to jump in if you need more clarity.
I think it's always a challenge too, right? It's good to know that there's some flexibility, and yeah, I just had to kind of smile for myself because I just had the challenge this morning because I was setting up one of the German event on the Women in Voice homepage, and I was like, because Katie told me the other day sometimes it doesn't make sense to add the logo. And I was like, looking at what I did, I was like, well, but it like we have a speaker from the Netherlands, so it now says, you know, ambassador from the Netherlands. So I think we need to include the logo more because it is a German or an event for our German chapter. So I think it's often about the context as well, right? So, but I totally get it, and I thought it was funny because the first thing you would do is add a logo everywhere. But yes, for example, if you have your own website, you don't really need to put your logo into each asset because the person is already on the website of that chapter, for example, right? So I think that's quite interesting.
That's exactly right, Romina. And I also think with social platforms, like when you can go to the landing page, not every asset needs a logo on it because you're already on the page for Women in Voice. So it does make sense in cases where it might be shared, like on LinkedIn. But for example, on Instagram, if every single post had the Women in Voice chapter logo in the corner, that would be too much potentially. So another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, and also if I may chime in on that because I just had the challenge as well. So as an FYI, I'm the one who puts those events onto the global website, and I had the challenge the other day where. And Sibel, I didn't make that confession to you yet because Women in Voice Silicon Valley is having a chapter launch party soon, and the asset was purely in or mainly in the typical bluish, greenish, like our core color, and the slider on which those events sit as well. So that image or the asset kind of merged with the background. So I had to make something different just so that the asset actually stands out. So that's also something I never thought about before. But yeah, the background can also be quite a challenge. Sibel, I hope that was okay. We can still exchange the image if you want, but I was like, oh, I need something different quickly because I wanted to be announced as well. So that was the core. And one other question was, maybe that's most of the stuff on the design topic. So what to avoid in terms of design and coloring and assets and everything? Maybe you want to give a quick insight on that?
Yeah, definitely. When you're crafting visuals, it's just important that it's minimal text, I think, and very clear to read. So like for an event, that's probably the best example because this is the most frequent thing Women in Voice chapters host, including the date and the time across regions if you want more than just your chapter to join is important. Where to RSVP is important. Like these are the things that should be prominently featured in the visual. If there's a speaker, include their image and their name. So it's easy to include too much information sometimes. So you really just want to think about like, what is the most important takeaways that I want to catch people's eye with so they can take an action and join or, RSVP or whatever it might be. So just making it super clear and easy to digest. So does that answer the question? I think the Ambassador Academy, which Romina and I worked on, actually, it was like a good test of preparing for this. We tried to use these same rules and follow that. So we included the Women in Voice specific Ambassador Academy logo. We included the date, time, and how to join. We included both of us because we knew we were going to be here, and the actual topic. So social media AMA. So that's a good example if you want to kind of work off that or use that as a reference point. But I think chapters are already doing a great job with this. And it's just making sure that it's clear and consistent.
Anybody else? Like, you can also chime in and ask more questions. Like, I'm running through the list. Most of you are on, as I can see in the document, and we will certainly have time afterwards for more questions. But yeah, otherwise I'll just work my way through. But please interrupt me whenever you'd like. If not, the next question is on the image or on the different sizes per platform. And I think this is probably one we can kind of shortcut because Katie, I just copy pasted. Oh, and you did as well as I can see.
Oh, I just dropped it in.
There's the cheat sheet. Cheat sheet, a word I cannot really pronounce in English, cheat sheet. But yes, so there's all the formats on there for the different channels. And it's probably worth checking every now and then. I don't know, Katie, do they change a lot? Probably not.
It's kept always up to date. So this is Sprout Social, which is also a great resource and tool. It's a marketing agency that basically shares guidance. They have an excellent blog. So I'll reference this spreadsheet often when I'm creating assets. And they include, if you pop in, there's different tabs for each platform, as well as all the different asset types. Super clear. Definitely bookmark this page if you're creating assets, and reference this is a good place to start.
Awesome. All right, before we move on from the design section, I would like to ask Jenny if she would, like, now that she heard us talking about this, maybe she would like to add something. And I must admit, Jenny, since you said in the chat that you have very interesting hair today, I would love to see it, but it's totally okay if you don't want to share your screen or your video more. See, totally fine. Do we have anything to add on the design topic, or did we do okay?
Oh, you did awesome. Thank you guys for putting this together. It's really cool. The only other thing I would say would be just to keep accessibility in mind. So if you are colorblind or have low vision, color contrast really matters. Or in color, yeah, so in colorblind, if your hues are too tightly together, they just appear as one color. There's quite a few, I'll drop some links here. I just have to pull them up. Where you can sort of test your image for those common problems. And so that's cool. And also alt text, put it in when you can, so that if you have an image that is words on an image, you need to make sure that they're available to screen readers. But otherwise, yeah, it's just, I think everything is mostly common sense. Of course, don't do too much imagery that is like, we don't want our images to be objectifying of women or other anybody's or anything that would be super controversial or insulting or objectionable to groups of people. But you guys wouldn't do that anyway, so that's all good. Yeah, that's probably all I need to add in. This has been so cool, by the way. It's so nice to see so many people from so many chapters, even if I do have kind of crazy hair.
No, you look very, very amazing, as always. No morning hair. Yeah, and we all have kind of a pandemic hair anyway, so yeah, I think it's totally fine to show up, however. Thank you so much, Jenny. And yeah, that image topic is great that you added it, right? Like, just kind of, because sometimes we get like slight feedback on imagery is kind of not so much there on the website, for example, or stuff like that. But yeah, that has a reason, right? Because we also don't want to, like, we don't want to put images of women in skirts, short skirts, whatever, like something that's very, you know, so like we just want to make sure to be rather neutral, diplomatic, and instead of edgy in this case, at least. So it's kind of a sensitive topic, and sometimes it's just easier to opt in for no image or like the stuff that we use other than like realistic images. And talking about images, maybe just one thing to add, depends on the platform. I don't think that's relevant everywhere, but alt text, like the meta descriptions, meta text, whatever, when platforms have that is also always great. So that in case an image is not shown, this is what would be read, or if somebody cannot see an image for some reason, to see whenever there is the possibility to add meta text, to make use of it. All right, moving on to the next topic.
Oh, quickly, Romina, I'm sorry.
specific.
I just have one other thing to add. And thank you, Jenny and Romina, for both your thoughts. Super helpful. With that, I would say before you post anything, always share it with just one other person on your team. That could even be me. You can Slack me anytime. If you just need a quick proofread or you want to make sure a visual looks okay, it just helps to have one other eye on it before it goes live. There's always the delete option. I've used it. You can always take down a post. It's not the end of the world if something goes up and it's not, you know, on brand for whatever reason. But it is good just to get that gut check. So just that's some good advice I learned over the years as well.
That's such a great tip too. Thank you for adding that. Yeah, I do that too. For example, I share stuff with myself on Slack all the time before I post on Slack because I want to see what featured image comes up, for example. And I used to do some social media work for a company like very many years ago, but I actually had a fake Facebook page for myself where I would post stuff all the time. So it was my fake company for my fake profile, and I would just post this stuff on there each time just to check how it looked. And basically I changed stuff all the time because it's just so different from doing it in a spreadsheet or some kind of document, and then you see it in situ and you're like, crap, I didn't imagine it to be like this, right? So definitely helpful. So yeah, thanks for adding that. Yeah, and would you like to continue with the next topic from the list, which is stories on LinkedIn, and probably stories in general, which was a question from the participants.
Yeah. Oh gosh, we could have a whole. Oh yes, go.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Go ahead.
No, please.
Thank you again so much for putting this together. Like, social media is super important for me, mostly because I have this love and hate relationship with social media. Sometimes try to restrict my social media presence, and other times I try to increase it. Like yesterday, we've started promoting our Silicon Valley launch party event, and because it's our first event, we don't have a lot of followers. So to increase our follower numbers, I have two questions. One, like for example, for Instagram, what is the best place to put a join or Eventbrite link? As I've noticed that if you put links in comments or even in the description of the post, those are not clickable. So I think that's kind of a challenge to get people to join. And two, like, is it okay to publicize our events in other relevant social circles like conversation design community, voice flow, and other like free voice events? Because like when it is our first event, I don't know how else we could publicize it to let people know that this is happening, because most of the Women in Voice community already knows, and they also may not be in Silicon Valley. So those are my questions. Thanks again for setting this up.
Thank you, Sybil. Those are such great questions. I actually saw the post about that. So kudos for getting that up, and excited for the launch party. So for your first question, I would say on Instagram, this is a great call out. You can include clickable links in the caption. So that's why a lot of times on Instagram, in visuals or in captions, you'll see link in bio. It's very important to know if you're going to include a link in the bio, you have to include it in the website, not in the text. There's like a separate section in when you edit your bio for website. So always include the link in that website section. And then I usually include, for Women in Voice Global, you can use that as like a reference point, but in the text portion, I'll say click down below to RSVP for our upcoming chapter launch party, or to read the latest on Medium. So I'm actually updating the link in bio quite often. Like every time I do a post on Instagram, I have to go into the platform to update that website link to make sure it corresponds with whatever the current post is. So this is a little bit time consuming, but it is a hack way to do it because like you said, there's no other way to get to that link unless you just drive to the website. Like I've done that before with Medium posts, including and spelling out the link on the actual visual asset, which can be cumbersome though if it's an Eventbrite. So that's kind of a workaround way on Instagram. And then does that answer your question? I'll just pause for a moment.
Yeah, totally. For sure. I wasn't aware of the website field for the bio. So I will go ahead and change that right after this.
Perfect.
I'm also using the link tree in the Instagram bio, where you can put basically more links connected to the major link, let's say. And it's quite useful because you can redirect people to events or websites or Medium and so on. I don't know, Katie, if you ever used it, also in other social media.
I haven't actually. I'm not familiar with that. So that's in Instagram, you said?
Yes, you can. I mean, it's in the website, in the web. So you can just look for it on Google. It's called Linktree. And
yes,
basically, you put this specific link on the Instagram bio, and it redirects you to another website where you can add more clickable links. So it's quite useful.
Thank you, Kiara. See, you learn something new every day, right? It's always evolving. I'm going to drop that link in the chat and I'm going to start using that. But normally, the website is a great place if you just need one landing page because you can get to all the events there and other pages as well. But Linktree is a great alternative as well if there's multiple. So yeah, it's kind of an exploratory test and learn to see what will actually get people to the page you want to get them to. But yeah, for your second question, so how to get more audience that might not be members already or familiar with Women in Voice. So I would say there's a couple of ways you can do this. Specifically on Instagram, I think this is where you can use location. It might not be as relevant because we're all working from home constantly and we might not be looking for like location-based events as much. But tagging like Silicon Valley, people might be searching by location and could find it that way. This is where hashtags are also really useful. So there's a hashtag free voice events, I believe it is. And anything you tag with that will get added to a calendar where people are checking regularly for voice events. You can also share it or tag other communities. So like we all know Voice Lunch is a huge community and they're always very willing to promote other events. Or this is where kind of building up your following on Instagram is also important. So just following other popular accounts. Usually voice is very new on Instagram specifically. Like there's not that big of a community as there is on Twitter, for example. Twitter has a huge voice community. So Instagram, it's cool because it's still pretty niche. So I think it's a really great time. Like when I was setting up the Women in Voice Instagram account for global, I would go to, like Voice Lunch, I'll just use again as an example, or like Google Assistant and see all of the different accounts Google Assistant is following. Follow those. They'll 9 times out of 10 will follow you back. And that's just one example of like how you can grow. So it does take some time and you have to kind of be in the platform and following and liking other posts and whatnot, but it does pay off because then the chances of them sharing your post and stories is higher and creating that kind of open-ended support system And again, another good example is just always tag Women in Voice Global and we'll repost. It does take time to do it on Instagram though. It's a slow build.
One good news, there's also this website, Voice, I think it's voice minus, no, you don't say minus, right? Like voiceevents.com. And we are very close to Natalie, who's doing that one. So we also share this little Slack channel. It's basically just Katie and me and Natalie who runs that page. And so we share events with each other. So we always try to make sure that she gets all the Women in Voice events and also post them on her site. So I don't know how much traffic she has, but just saying that's also happening in the background. But yeah, definitely spread it as wide as you can. And yeah, Margarita, you had your hand up. I'm not sure if you took it back down or if I just don't see it anymore.
Well, the thing is about Linktree. I'm not pretty sure, but I think at the end of November or December, some Instagram accounts were penalized, and it's supposed that it could be because of Linktree. So I'm not sure because you know, these changes of algorithms, people are not sure, and it seems like Instagram doesn't like links. It was penalizing some account with Linktree. So I don't know if it's sure, if it's safe to use it or not. So that's all.
That's interesting. Yeah, this is where testing, everything really is a test and learn, I would say, on social media. I know the next topic we were going to talk about is stories, which is we could have a whole session just on stories.
I was going to say, we probably need that too, because it's getting such a big topic, all the stories everywhere. So yeah, we might actually do a deep dive one day. Yeah.
But to Margarita's point, it can be a challenge to just like use a new tool and see if it works. Luckily, there is pretty good analytics, specifically on Instagram. They have a whole analytics dashboard if you register as a business account. So make sure that the Women in Voice chapter account is a business account, and then you'll see things like the best time of day to post or when you're getting most engagement. The only way to find that out, though, is to launch posts at different times and stagger them to see when the best engagement is. So just another thing to keep in mind. And that includes how many people are actually clicking through on your bio page to go to a website link. So this is all super useful, and it's no different from voice. It's like looking at the data and seeing how people are interacting and using these platforms, and then responding to that and optimizing, right? It's all related.
Perfect, thanks. Looking at the time, and since you already kind of were saying, yeah, stories is such a big topic, I have this one proposal. I think one of the very interesting questions, like in general, would be when to post stuff. And I would like to propose to actually really like take that story topic to some other time and cover it like in more depth, because what I would really like to make sure is to ask, especially Crane, if there's more questions, because I forgot to say in the introduction how this all came about was Women in Voice Netherlands reaching out saying, hey, how amazing, we have people who now will help us with social media, and could we do some kind of onboarding? So I want to make sure this is like, we are talking about stuff that's actually helpful. So I personally feel like it is like, I love hearing Katie speak about social media and could listen forever, but it's not about me. So I would definitely like to make sure you have like this moment to ask more questions, not meaning to put you on the spot, but just saying. So maybe we can do what's the best time to post question as the last one on this list, and then putting the spotlight on Crane again.
Sounds good.
Great.
Yeah, so best time to post, and I kind of just alluded to it a little bit. It's going to be based on where your local region is, right? Obviously. So it's going to vary across chapters. I would say most of the time you can look at your own social habits. Like when you're taking a break, you're usually going on social media. So when I'm scheduling posts for the week out, depending on what it is again, I'll look at like, okay, on Mondays, people are kind of planning their schedules for the week. Like this is a good time to remind people about events first thing in the morning. Usually is a good time. With algorithms, how they are on social media, like LinkedIn, we see this often. You can get engagement on a post from weeks ago just because it'll resurface based on how much engagement it's getting. Same on Twitter. So, and this is where I'll quickly touch on stories as well. Stories is a great tool for if you do an initial post of like, our event is in 2 weeks, you can plug that in stories again and again every day if you want with a countdown. You can we'll have a different session on this, like Romina said, where we maybe do like a workshop of like creating stories. But this is how you can leverage the actual platforms and the tools they offer. So you're not reposting the same post driving to an event, but you're actually reminding people in a more like current and active way. So yeah, I would say space out different posts. Middle of the week is good too. End of the week, I think people are ready to take a break from social maybe and get their weekends on. So I would say like normally beginning and middle of the week is generally better, but end of the week can be good too because it's people when they have downtime. So I'll usually do a push on the Women in Voice Global socials for like catch up on our YouTube channel or new posts on our Medium, like take time this weekend to read through. So it again kind of depends on what the actual post is itself. But usually morning and middle of the day in your local region is best. Yeah. Hope that helps.
Thank you. And I think maybe that plays into this topic as well, not only like when to post. I was just thinking about how often to post something as well. I mean, of course, if you share an article, that's going to be once, right? But like if you have your own event and stuff, I think that's always a question on how many times should you say that. Because I don't know about all of you, but personally, I feel like I'm getting on people's nerves very, very easily if I like post too often. But I did make the experience with the Women in Voice chapter. We only managed one event where we had like a very long time until it took place, like, I don't know, 4 or 6 weeks. And we frequently posted when this event was going to happen in different posts. And that was one of the events with the most signups. I mean, this is kind of obvious, right? But it did make sense. Like, I think we had it in 1 or 2 of our newsletters and frequently on our social media, just saying, hey, this is coming up, like with slightly like different posts. So it does make sense. And I guess what we cannot forget is that people don't look at the Women in Voice social media account as we do. So we appear with our posts in the feeds of people. So they don't look specifically at our page to go, oh, they posted the same thing, like, I don't know, 2 weeks in a row, right? So we just appear in their threads, so that it's fine if it's important. And if you want to raise awareness for an event, to do that a couple of times, I would say, unless you disagree, Katie, but I think it does make sense if you want to generate a lead, basically, right, in terms of participants. I think that's a good way to go. Yeah, and as we said before, so another question is, Crane, did this session help you? Being very freshly into social media for Women in Voice, helping the Dutch chapter, what do you think?
Yeah, it helped tremendously. A lot of ideas, which we will talk about with the Dutch chapter. So thank you so much. It really helps.
Awesome. Do you have any specific questions like burning at this moment?
I think all of the questions have been answered. I'm looking forward to the next one, maybe about the stories. I'm very curious about that.
Sure. I mean, we do have a few minutes left, right? So I was just wanting to make sure we cover this first. So I'm happy we can start if you guys want with the stories topic. Didn't mean to kind of take it off the plate. So if you want, we can. And also, if somebody needs to go at the hour, totally fine. We might just do like 2 minutes longer or something. And then it's also recorded until the end. yeah, so if you want, Katie, if you feel like it, should we go into the stories for a moment?
Yeah, definitely. So stories are an art in themselves. Like there's so many, in Instagram is probably the biggest use case of stories, which I love creating stories in Instagram. It's like very fun, all the different bells and whistles you can add. So yeah, I think a workshop session would be great, and we'll add that as an add-on session for anyone interested. The thing about stories, so I know there was a question about stories on LinkedIn, and I actually just went on LinkedIn to check, and I don't see it anymore. So I don't know if it was just something they were testing out, or if it's not available in the US anymore. But the background on stories is this is a Snapchat format that other platforms saw was very successful, and Instagram copied, I think, in the last like 3 years. And then it started, you know, Facebook launched it, then LinkedIn launched it, Twitter's exploring different stories. So really what stories is like, they all delete after 24 hours for the most part. And so it's very like current of the moment, what is relevant right now, which can be, it takes time to build them though, right? Like I'll spend 20 minutes creating a story that's up for 10 seconds for one day. Like that's, it's time consuming. But for our mentor program, this is a great example. We posted on stories the last like 48 hours when people could register to be a mentor, because we wanted to get as many signups as possible. So I think I was creating like every day multiple posts driving to the mentorship program. So same with an event, right? If you're posting, like Romina said, which was a great point, you should be posting every week, especially if you have that lead time. And so it's appearing in people's feeds, it's spreading that wider net. But an additional way, this is where like the ice cream metaphor, it's like the sprinkles and the cherry on top. This is stories. So you definitely, the in-feed post is what you should prioritize. But stories for that like last minute push, when you want to get a little artsy with it or like have some fun and experiment, stories is a great place to do this. Yeah. So that's kind of my like quick spiel. I hope that helps.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking we should definitely think about some kind of workshop where maybe even starting with like using Canva to create an asset and then using it to produce a story. And this is where it ends for me because I have no clue about stories, so I'd definitely join. So maybe that's a good thing to do. Yeah, great. So I guess that was enough time for the stories. I'm sorry, I might have made a big deal out of it. But yeah, definitely looking forward to diving deeper into that topic. So we might actually be able to stop on time then. Does anyone have questions or what did you think about this? Do you have specific ideas for further topics? Sophia?
Yes, first of all, thank you for creating this meeting, and it's been wonderful to catch up with all of you. And second, I would like to really I do really apologize for my English. It's been quite long since I haven't been speaking this language.
Totally fine. Doing great.
Sorry if I made any mistakes. I hope I will explain myself properly. But I would like, there is a question that I didn't knew where to classify it, and it's regarding the reuse or recycle the content of other chapters. So we were thinking from the Spain chapter, we would like to make it we would like to give credit to all the content of the different chapters, and here in Spain specifically, we'd like to know if it is properly to do it, and of course if it would be okay if we try to translate some of the content, because sometimes here the main language is Spanish, as you may, it is obvious, I said it, and we were thinking if it's proper to use it, and of course giving credit to the chapter as well. I don't know if I'm opening a controversial topic, of it is not, but I would like to try to bring up this topic too. So if we can have a little bit of clarify in this matter.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sophia. And we should definitely talk more, because this is also something we could have a whole nother session on. This is always top of mind, like how do we localize and translate into the local languages? Because our chapters are the heart of Women in Voice. We definitely want to have that translation available. This is where Canva, which I can include the link to again, and I hope you have access to. If not, we can definitely get you set up. That's where asset sharing across chapters is really easy to do, and for translating as well. Because it's very simple to make a copy of any assets, and then you can write in your local language and translate the actual content, but then also have access to other chapter logos, or even in the captions, just calling out or tagging other chapters.
Exactly.
There's multiple ways. So I definitely think we should continue this conversation, but short answer is absolutely. If you want to translate any content, we can work offline to make sure you have access to the assets. If you need help with the translations or anything like that, we can definitely work internally to make sure that's available.
Oh, perfect. That would be great, because we didn't want to misunderstood or create a translation that it's not really it doesn't recreate the original content. So we didn't want to use or to give voice to another content of a chapter without talking with them first.
I think
Totally
that's a good
makes
point.
sense. Yeah. Go ahead, Romina. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think so I guess a current problem is that in Canva not all chapters are like using that surrounding and stuff, right? So there might be like limited access to those assets, but I think as long as you kind of go with your gut feeling. So example, what we do for Women in Voice Germany, I mean, you can like always share other chapters' content and go, wow, look at what Women in Voice Spain is doing, right? Or comment on it, because that's all we want, right? We want to celebrate each other. We want to share each other's great achievements, right? I would say if it's, for example, let's say Women in Voice Italy, they have this great format on social media where they explain like basic vocabulary of voice. In that case, for example, I would reach out to Chiara and go, hey, we love that. Can we get access to your assets, translate them into German and use them as well? And chances are extremely high they will go, yes, of course, right? Because I know like usually we share a lot of stuff, but sometimes you just have to ask. For example, I received presentations from other chapters, or we now have the one ambassador from Women in Voice Netherlands giving a talk for Women in Voice Germany. So it's all about sharing stuff. And I would say if you want to actually redo something others have done originally, I would just ask. And anything that's out there anyways, just share and celebrate. That's exactly perfect. I hope that helps in addition.
Okay, thank you so much.
And you can always, if you have questions like that as well, maybe this is also good as kind of the finishing message for today. You can always reach out to Katie. You can always reach out to me. You can reach out to any of the ambassadors and helping people. If you know, like this is the person from that chapter and I want their assets, you can also just reach out to them, right? So, and if you don't know whom to reach out to, start with Katie or me, and we'll try to help direct you to the right person in that case. Yeah. I see there's a lot of chat going on. I did not check it. Oh yeah, people are sharing the email address. We also have a wiki and a list of contacts, so that's also going to help. I'm going to see who has access to it yet. So I know we have some new people here. I might be a little bit behind on adding people to certain channels. I'm sorry about that, but I'm trying to keep up with all the names and addresses and stuff. That's sometimes kind of tricky, but I'm working on it. You will hear from me, I'm sure, and I promise. Yeah, so anyone would like to share some last words? Otherwise, I'd say we probably don't go into more questions, but I think, I don't know, Katie, what about you? But we'd be happy to do more of those sessions, right? If you would be interested. I see some nodding.
Definitely. Yeah, please reach out if there's something specific. I know stories is a big one and workshopping in Canva. Another session that I was planning to do just with the global content team, and we can certainly open it up, is how to use Hootsuite and posting across multiple platforms. and also just content calendar planning, another big piece of it. So yeah, lots more to come, lots to always talk about, but it's been so great connecting with all of you, and thank you for taking time this morning. Like Romina said, definitely reach out if you have specific questions, and tag Women in Voice Global so we can promote your content. That's my call to action.
I just want to say thank you both so much, and everyone. This has been amazing this morning. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. What time is it? 6 or even earlier?
It's
6
6
in the
o'clock
morning,
now.
right? So yeah, I felt so bad when I scheduled it. I was like, I know how badly you wanted to come, but there it is, the time zone issue, and you kind of always suffer the most from it. Thank you so much for getting up early for us.
Not at all. It's been totally worth it.
Awesome.
Thanks, Leslie, for joining. And anyone who dropped your email in, I'm going to add you to Canva right now. So you should receive an email. If you do not, please reach out to me on Slack. Again, troubleshooting constantly, but we'll get you on there.
Okay. Thank you all so much. I guess time to say goodbye, right? Otherwise it's going to get awkward. The typical situation where no one knows when to get off. So have a great evening. Have a great day. Thank you so much. And would be lovely to see you all again in some of the next sessions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.